fund, Cafe Capital, is a cross-border fund. We invest in companies in China that is on a growth curve, specifically in the clean tech area, and also in the biomedical area. And we focus on companies that are on a growth curve that could benefit from being merged or being acquired or acquiring international companies that will give them either technology or global market space. So it is very much focused on cross-border. So recently, we completed the majority acquisition of Johnway with Zap and Johnway together. And this is an exciting combination of Chinese automobile manufacturing. Johnway is ISO 9000 compliant, has modern factory facilities in Zhejiang province, and is ramping up their productions of SUVs and vans and trucks. And Zap, who has been in the electric vehicle space for 17 years, brings to the combination of the two companies technology and experience know-how. Zap has not been a manufacturing production company, primarily because it's been difficult to build up that manufacturing factory in California. But with Johnway now, they do have manufacturing capacity and also the capability to do manufacturing production of electric vehicles. So it's a combination of traditional vehicles and electric vehicle, but taking and leveraging the strength of both of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where China is on transportation and going green. So Zap Johnway is bridging US and China to make electric vehicle a practical economic reality. This is truly combining the strengths of US companies with Chinese companies and also having access to the Chinese market through Johnway's fairly broad reach of dealerships. They have over 90 dealers, direct dealers in China in every province, and over 250 customer service support centers. So what has the Chinese government been doing in the green transportation initiatives? They mandated that 33 cities has to be fully electric for the buses by 2012. Now it's been increased to 55 cities, and they're well into that. All 55 cities already have deployed electric buses, full electric buses, and there will be no issue in getting to that target by 2012. The central government has provided subsidies of 600,000 RMB per bus, which is a fairly sizable amount. The actual cost of Metro City electric bus is around 130,000 to 150,000, depending on the capacity in terms of US dollars. And this subsidy of 600 RMB, which is equivalent to about, I would say, 80,000, 85,000 US, covers a good more than 50% of the actual cost of electric buses. And it provides also a 60,000 RMB in terms of subsidy for the sedan. This is paid for each vehicle that the manufacturer sells, and it's actually reimbursed to the manufacturer, not to the consumer. And the reason that this is a very interesting way for subsidy, which is different than most other countries, which gives the subsidy to the consumer, is that it actually provides the working capital for the manufacturer to continue to build on the market. And since this is only given when the vehicle is sold, of course, the manufacturing companies are really pushing to get their vehicles to the best position in the market and be able to sell it. That way they get that rebate from the government. The goal is for the government to reach 500,000 electric vehicles by 2011, which is this year, and they're spending about 1.4 billion in terms of reimbursement in RMB. Again, I use reimbursement. This is, again, a different way of applying RMB money compared to this country. In this country, generally, money is given, and then the research is done. In China, what they do is you spend money on R&D, and at the end of the year, you submit the money, submit a reimbursement request for the R&D that you have already spent. So first you have to spend it, then they will review to see what you've spent to see if it qualifies, and then they give you a reimbursement on that. And so in a way, really you have to really put your money where your mouth is. You have to spend the money, you have to do the research, and it has to be qualifiable research, R&D, research and development, and then you would get the reimbursement. Now, not all of the submissions, of course, are fully reimbursed, but the reimbursement is up to 3% of your revenue. So if you were not making any money, then if you were not generating any revenue, you would not actually get any reimbursement. So it's a little bit ironic, but it's kind of, in one sense, it's actually, it incents the manufacturers to actually go out and get the revenue and not be kind of a pure blue sky R&D shop. So you have to make money to get money, and you have to spend the money before you can get it. So it's a very different philosophy. And so the more revenue you make, the more R&D you potentially could get reimbursed for. So again, it's rewarding for success. I was just discussing at lunchtime that there's a different philosophy in terms of the central government in China compared to the US. In the central government, the party secretaries are all vying to increase their GDP. Every single city, every single province, all of them are pushing to increase their GDP. And because the higher the GDP, the more money they're going to get from the central government. In this country, if you're a state that is losing money or bankrupt, then the federal government will give you money. So this is, again, a reverse incentive. So I would say, in this case, the Chinese government is practicing capitalism better than the US government. So it's rewarded for success. The more successful you are, the more you get. The National Grid is building out infrastructure for EV charge stations. They are very much focused on being the energy provider for the electric vehicle. So they have taken a huge stake in being able to supply the energy to batteries and potentially being in the business of leasing batteries to the electric vehicles. And then using the vehicle's odometer as the metering to actually charge how much you have to pay the power grid, the electric company in this case. Of course, the electric company is actually the government in this case. So they're looking at the odometer as your meter for how much energy you use. And you can do battery swap out, you can charge it at home, but in the end, they measure the odometer to figure out how much actually energy you're using. And they will actually, when you buy a car, you buy what we call the glider and the engine without the batteries. The battery actually now, currently an all-electric car, actually the battery costs about 50% of the cost of the electric vehicle, so it's fairly sizable. So when you look at the batteries, it's a very key part of the electric vehicle. It's being financed by the energy providers. And what you see there is actually solar farms and wind farms by one of the largest alternative energy companies in China, GCL, who is also a partner of ZAP, Zhangwei. And what they provide is really being able to take the energy from solar and wind and then storing it in the battery banks. And then they're using that same set of battery banks to supply and provide energy to the grid. And this is important because the level 3 charger, for those who are into electric vehicle, the level 3 charger is actually a huge drain on the grid. But by buffering it with batteries, battery banks, then it actually tempers the drain on the grid. And so they're very much focused, the energy company is very much focused in investing in batteries and being able to then supply energy in a fairly fast charge for the electric vehicle, and also potentially doing battery swap outs. And that will mitigate the demand on the power grid. So ZAP Zhangwei currently is in partnership with a company in China called Better World, not Better Place, and also with a robotic company in France to provide the standardized cartridge and connectors for battery swap out, because the national grid is going to be supporting the power that's going to go to the battery banks that does all of the swap out. So currently China is looking to standardize the connectors, the cartridge, the wiring, the form and format of these swap out stations, of these swap out cartridges.